welcome to a new video! My name is Kat, and today I have some book reviews for you guys. I have 4 books. I don't know why I clapped. That was annoying. I have 4 books here to talk about, and I feel like I have a lot to say about all of them. Even though one was a reread, I feel like I have a lot to say today. So here it comes. Let's get into this. So first up, I have here Otherworld by Jason Segel and Kirsten Miller. This was the Booksplosion Book of the Month for December, and the live show obviously has already happened, so I will link that down below if you've read this book and you want to watch that to hear all the spoilery discussion. Basically, this is the first book in a new sci-fi series, but it's kind of light on the sci-fi. Like, it's set in a world that is very similar to our own, they just have some more advanced virtual reality technology. I actually really loved that aspect of the setting because so often these virtual reality stories are set in the future, but this one could take place like this year. We follow a teenage boy named Simon who is getting into this new virtual reality technology, and then his friend gets involved in an accident and she goes missing, and that is all connected to Otherworld. So we have this whole mystery about what happened to Simon's friend and what is really going on with Otherworld, and then we also have this adventure side of things where Simon is exploring the virtual reality world of Otherworld, and it's fascinating and fun, and I really enjoyed this. I personally love video games, and I am so intrigued by stories that play around with like video games and especially virtual reality, so this was something that like I knew I was gonna enjoy it from the get-go just because of the premise. As I mentioned earlier, I loved that this took place like in the modern day and not in the future, and I loved the virtual reality world. Like, it was super cool. I would totally be down to play around with this technology, even though it's also kind of terrifying. I couldn't resist. Now, while I loved the setting and like the adventure aspects, I wasn't totally connected to the characters. Our main character, Simon, is definitely flawed. Like, he's selfish and kind of a jerk, which I actually really liked. Like, so often we have main characters who are all about morality and justice, so it was kind of nice seeing a main character who wasn't a bad guy, but I would not call him a good guy. So yeah, overall, I really enjoyed this book. It was fun and mostly lighthearted. Like, it wasn't too serious, which was really nice for me at this reading time because some of the other books I read were serious and heavy, and I'm really glad that I read this when I did because it was super fun and I really liked it. The next book I have here is Carry On by Rowell, and obviously this was the reread because unless you're new here, then you know that this is one of my favorite books of all time, possibly my favorite book of all time, and most definitely my most reread book of all time. Like, I've only read the physical copy maybe 10 times. Only. But there was a period of at least a month or two in my life when I would fall asleep listening to the audiobook every night. And I also listened to the audiobook all the way through several times. So I'm not quite sure what number reread this was for me, but it's definitely up there. It was the first time I reread it in like a year probably. So it was overdue, and it was wonderful. It was great. I love this book. If you want to know more about this book, because I'm now realizing that I haven't said anything about like the plot or the characters or whatever, that's because I already discussed everything about this book in great detail in a previous video. So yeah, if you want to watch a very long rambly video about how much I adore this book, then that video is linked below. You can check that out. The next book that I have here is ELEANOR Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. This was my final read of 2017, and it was a total impulse buy. I was researching on Goodreads some 2017 books that I missed earlier in the year, and I saw this one, and the title immediately caught my attention, and then I read the synopsis, and I was like, okay, I need to buy this immediately. It's about this woman in her late 20s who is very socially awkward and also antisocial. So she has trouble, like, interacting normally with people, and also she just doesn't care to. She doesn't think there's anything wrong with her life the way it is. Like, she's content, she's completely fine. But then her and this guy that she works with named Raymond happen to save this old man who like collapses in the street. And this kind of kicks off Eleanor's journey into like navigating these new social situations and kind of coming to the conclusion that maybe her life isn't completely fine as it was. I wasn't really sure what to expect going into it because so many of the reviews that raved about it didn't say a lot because they didn't want to spoil anything, which I'm glad I didn't know like anything about this book going into it because I really enjoyed my reading experience of this book. But I did also experience like some stress and discomfort in the middle of the book because I didn't know what direction we were going in. If this book went in one direction, I was gonna be really like, ooh about it, but it ended up going in the other direction, and I actually loved the ending so much more than I was expecting, especially because halfway through I was like, oh no, what direction is this book gonna go in? And then it went in the direction that it went in, and I loved it. Eleanor was a very interesting character, especially her social struggles. Like, I thought I was really gonna relate to her, because like, hey, I'm socially awkward too, but I'm aware of it. Like, Eleanor isn't aware that she's the socially awkward one. Like, she just really doesn't understand a lot of social etiquette, and she ends up in awkward situations, but she doesn't feel awkward. But I, as the reader, felt really awkward reading some parts of this book. And I did feel like it dragged a little bit in the middle, and part of that was probably because I was wondering, like, what direction is the story gonna take? But also, while Eleanor was a really interesting character, like, it was fascinating to see how she reacted in certain social situations because it was so different from anything, like, I would ever think to do. But there were some times when that felt a little bit repetitive. It was just like, okay, here's another situation where Eleanor doesn't understand social customs. That being said, though, I did really love her journey in this book, especially the ending. I don't want to spoil anything, and I don't think that saying that this book deals with mental health issues is a spoiler. I feel like you can get that, but I can't really elaborate much without spoilers, so I will just say that I really appreciated how the mental health aspect was handled, especially toward the end of this book. So yeah, this was definitely not my typical read, but I'm really glad I picked it up. I really enjoyed it. It was fascinating and awkward and heartwarming and really well written, and I enjoyed it. It was a good one. Okay. Here we go. We're moving on to the final book I will be discussing in this video, which is Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. I saved it till the end because I feel like I probably have the most to say about this. So here we go. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the synopsis because I feel like so many other people have already discussed this book. If you've heard of this book, then you know the gist of what it's about. Basically, we follow a 17-year-old girl who is struggling with her OCD and also the fact that one of her former childhood friends, his dad is a billionaire, he's gone missing, on the run possibly, there's a reward, it's kind of a mystery of tracking him down, what happened to him, finding him, getting the reward. It's beautifully written. Like, this book, the words, I really love John Green's writing, I always have. He just has such a way with words, in my opinion. But the thing that I didn't like about this book was the way it made me feel. The way you make me feel. It was really bad. It was bad. You made me feel bad. Now, I personally don't struggle with OCD at all, so that didn't really affect me, but our main character is also struggling a lot with anxiety, and because of how well written it was, it really pulled me into that, and it made my own anxiety just like whoosh, flare up. I'm not the kind of person who pays attention to like warnings and triggers and stuff like that. Like it is very, very, very rare for something in a book or a movie to like really, really affect me in that way. But this book did. It was so triggering, which I have never experienced from a book before. Like, I've never read a book that made me feel like I was gonna have a panic attack for the next 2 days until this book. I know that this book was wonderful and beautiful and could help so many people, but for me personally, like, and the place I was in a really good place. So it wasn't like this book was giving me hope and lifting me up. It was like this book was bringing me back down into anxiety panic mode. And I hated it, but the book was good. But it's complicated. I don't even know how I would rate this. Like, objectively, I'd probably give it 5 stars, 4.5, because like, the only real weakness that I would identify in a storytelling perspective is that the missing billionaire plot is kind of weak, but the story's not really about that. Like, we're more focused on the protagonist's inner journey. But I usually rate books based on how much I personally enjoyed them, and like, enjoyment was not a feeling in me when I was reading this. It was just all the enjoyment that I could have felt was instead replaced by anxiety. And while I 100% believe that this book is great and important and could help many, many people, I wish that I didn't read it. At least at the time that I did. Like, if I read this at a different time, I could see it helping me and being like a wonderful read for me. But I wish I hadn't read it, which I hate saying that for a John Green book. Like, it just feels like sacrilege. Honestly, I was thinking about this, and something that I would have enjoyed, like, way more, I feel, is a non-fiction essay collection by John Green about his experiences with OCD and mental health. Because so much of this book and this protagonist was based off of his own experiences, rather than like putting it into this character and into this like with the mystery plot and everything. I felt like the plot aspect was kind of unnecessary, and I would love to see his musings on mental health and his own experiences and stuff in his like typical, beautiful, like poignant, well-written words. I'd love like a nonfiction essay collection about mental health from John Green more than this book, I feel like. But anyways, I think that's it. I think that's all the rambling I have in me about this book at this point in time anyways. I don't know. Maybe I'll reread it sometime and have a different experience. We'll see. Yeah, we're done. All right, there you have it. Those are my thoughts on some of the books I recently read, and that's gonna do it for this video today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a great night, and I will have another video up eventually, so I will see you then. Goodbye! Oh, sorry, I like came right at you.